All right, today we're going to get into something huge, how the two biggest names in cloud, AWS and Azure, think about building massive digital infrastructures. We're talking about their core philosophies for laying the groundwork, the foundation for everything else you're going to build. Okay, let's get right into it.
And, this all starts with solving one core problem. When a company just rushes into the cloud without a real plan, it gets messy. Fast. It becomes this chaotic Wild West of security holes, runaway costs, a total nightmare. A proper cloud foundation, well, that's the antidote. It brings order and security right from day one.
Think about it like you're building an actual house. You can't just pour some concrete and hope it holds up, right? The foundation you lay has to be designed for what you're going to build on top of it. The foundation for a small house is completely different from the one you'd need for a skyscraper. And that brings us to the most important question you have to ask first. What are you actually going to build? Because that decision determines everything about your foundation. In the cloud world, we call that foundation a landing zone. It's basically your pre-built, secure, ready-to-go environment where all your apps are going to live. But just like in the real world, that blueprint has to match the size of your ambition.
For instance, let's say you're just building a house. Maybe that's a few apps for a small, fast-moving team. Well, your landing zone needs to be simple, flexible, and super quick to get going. You're prioritizing speed here, not some heavy enterprise-level rulebook. But what if you're building a stadium? A massive app that has to handle millions of people all at once. Suddenly, everything changes. Your foundation now has to be built for incredible scale, constant uptime, and just ironclad security from the very beginning.
Or what if you're building a bridge? Maybe you're connecting complex systems in a super regulated industry like finance or healthcare. Now your foundation's top priorities are going to be compliance, making sure everything is auditable, and just having rock-solid, totally reliable connections.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. The two master builders of the cloud, AWS and Azure, they have completely different ideas about how to create these foundations. And understanding that difference, well, that's the key to making the right call.
At the end of the day, both platforms will get you to the same place, a well-run, secure cloud environment. But think of them as totally different vehicles. The journey they take you on to get to that final destination is worlds apart.
And this slide just perfectly lays out that big philosophical split. On one hand, you've got AWS Control Tower. It's like getting a high-quality prefabricated building kit. It's a managed service that you pretty much just turn on, and boom, it assembles a best practice environment for you. Azure, on the other hand, gives you a detailed architectural blueprint. It's a powerful set of templates that you deploy yourself, and then you own the code, so you can change it however you want. So the huge advantage of that AWS prefab kit is speed. It is just incredibly fast to get a secure multi-account setup going. The flip side, though, is that it can feel a little bit like a black box. If you need to customize it in a big way, you often have to start bolting on other frameworks, which, can make things more complicated. Now, Azure's blueprint approach gives you the exact opposite trade-off. It is unbelievably flexible because you own all the code. You can tune it to your exact needs. But that power comes with a price. There's a higher learning curve up front, and your team really needs to have a solid handle on core Azure concepts. You're not just turning on a service, you're actually building the foundation yourself.
Okay, let's keep going and see how this whole service versus architecture thing plays out in what is probably the most important area of all, how they enforce the rules of construction, what we call governance.
This is where the technical differences are just night and day. Azure policy acts like a scalpel. It sits right at the main control layer and checks every single request as it comes in real time. If a request breaks a rule, it gets denied before it's even created. It stops problems before they happen. It's preventative and super precise. AWS splits this job in two. For prevention, you have service control policies, or SCPs, which act like a big shield. They set broad boundaries like, nope, you can't use these regions. But for everything else, AWS relies on detection. And that's where AWS Config comes in, acting like a security camera. It spots things that are out of compliance after they've been built, and then flags them for someone to go in and fix later.
So, given these two totally different ways of thinking, how does a business actually choose the right blueprint? This isn't about which one is better full stop. It's about which one is a better fit for your company, your team's skills, and what you're ultimately trying to achieve.
And this table really brings it all home. Just look at the delivery model, an architecture you build versus a managed service you turn on. Check out the policy engines, real-time denial versus reactive detection. This even goes down to networking, where Azure's blueprint is built to handle complex setups right out of the box, while Control Tower might need some add-ons. It all comes back to that central choice. Do you want deep customization or do you want rapid deployment?
So let's make it simple. You're going to lean towards AWS Control Tower. If speed is the name of the game, if you want the absolute fastest path to a good, secure starting point, and you'd rather have a managed, hands-off service instead of maintaining your own code, this is a fantastic choice to get going fast with some solid guardrails. But on the flip side, you're going to be looking hard at the Azure landing zone if your company absolutely needs that deep, granular, real-time policy enforcement we talked about. If you already have a strong infrastructure as code culture, you want to manage everything through code, and you need a super customized foundation that maps perfectly to your business, well then the Blueprint approach was practically made for you. And that brings us to one final big question for the future. You know, both of these solutions are amazing for getting your house in order on a single cloud, but more and more companies are going multi-cloud, using AWS, Azure, Google, all at the same time. And the next huge challenge isn't going to be building one perfect foundation, but figuring out how to orchestrate all of them. So maybe the next big thing we'll need is a blueprint for our blueprint.